I do believe, Shea, that there is, despite the Bears losing 8 games in a row, despite the season being over for them mathematically and all that good stuff, they're going to be going after a new head coach. We all know that. There are still things to watch for this weekend with the Bears. I think that this is not still and it's not Caleb Williams. I do think that there are things to watch with Caleb Williams because you're looking at a Lions team that has given up 48 points last week to the Bills, 31 points to the Packers, and we saw on Thanksgiving they gave up 20 points to the Bears, and the Bears, obviously did most of that scoring in the second half of that game, so they're trying to build upon that and maybe actually start fast. But I do think that the thing to watch for this week and for the next 3 weeks is the rest of the team that is around Caleb Williams, because this is an audition still, I think, and I hope it is, for the people in the front office, for Ryan Poles and the guys that he has drafted and he has signed and he has brought in. We all know Caleb Williams is going to be around. It's not an audition for him.
Can't fire the quarterback.
Can't fire the quarterback. He's only been here for a year. He's going to be here for at least 2 more years. And if it doesn't work out, you'll do the same thing you did with Justin Fields. You won't pick up the 5th-year option and you'll trade him. That's just how it works. But for Ryan Poles, you've got to look at guys that he has drafted in the last 3 years and guys that he has signed. We know that Braxton Jones still has a concussion. Kieran Amagaji is going to be out there. The dude was a 3rd-round pick. If he still looks like he did last week, that's a reflection on Ryan Poles. If Darnell Wright looks like he's continuing to regress, that's a reflection on Ryan Poles. Tyreek Stevenson. I know Jalen Johnson wasn't his draft pick, but you did re-sign him. You extended him. You extended DJ Moore. You extended all these guys. You didn't pick Cole Kmet. You extended Cole Kmet. So this is still, to me, and I hope it is for the people upstairs at Halas Hall, an audition for Ryan Poles, because I don't think it should be a given that he is allowed to return and select the new head coach. And not only that, have this draft class where you have 3 very high picks and spend over $60 million worth of cap space coming up here in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the audition's over. I'd move on from him. I don't think there's anything he can do to save his job. For me, I'm not saying what I think is going to happen at Halas, because the likeliest outcome is they keep him. But if I were running this team, you're done. And the players that you mentioned that will be on the field can't save him, because the bigger mistakes are the players who aren't on the team anymore.
Yeah.
Shout out Nate Davis. Shout out Velus Jones. Shout out Chase Claypool. The mistakes are so loud and so bad. That's where I really draw the line. When your top 2 free agent acquisitions, the highlight reels, are DeAndre Swift, who's like a fine player, would be useful on a team that actually can run the ball, but is just an average running back, and Nate Davis, who you had to cut halfway into his 2nd season, and you're eating money on it? Nah, I'm done. You're done. You got draft picks like Tyreek Stevenson, who looks like ass. He gets cooked nonstop. He's had some nice plays throughout his career, the short career so far, but man, he's getting cooked a lot now.
Yeah, I want to point to something that Brad Biggs wrote today in his mailbag, whether or not, coaching candidates are going to view the Bears front office and the Bears situation as, quote, toxic. Right, like if Mike Vrabel comes in, if anybody, Joe Brady, if any of these guys come in and they're going to be asking Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, why is it so toxic here? Why hasn't it worked for the last 20 years here? What has been going wrong? And whether or not it's going to be too toxic. And this is what he writes. I don't believe so. Candidates going to have questions they want answered in the process? Absolutely. But the impression I'm getting is that the Bears have been pretty forthright about their shortcomings. I'm told by sources outside the building that the team's top leadership, and this includes Warren and general manager Ryan Poles, have been reflective and have communicated the right message. And that goes back to, I'm also out on Ryan Poles. I think he should be gone. I agree with you. So what are you going to say? I haven't been able to put together an offensive line in 3 years?
Yeah.
The players that I've brought in on defense are now, since week 7, the worst defense in the NFL.
Yeah, terrible.
How are you going to say that you should be allowed to continue on as GM if those are your shortcomings? Like, if your shortcomings are like, okay, Nate Davis didn't work out, but aside from that, this offensive line is pretty strong. Like, our tackles are set. We just kind of need a new center because he's only on a 1-year deal. We'll draft a center, we'll draft a guard, and that'll be it. And we're good. You can't say that with this offensive line. You can't say that the defense, we're set on defense. How are you set on defense? You're almost dead last in every defensive category since week 7. So you left your defense in London, essentially, is how this has worked out. The defense has stayed in London, and the offense for pretty much too. So how can a new head coach come in, whether it's Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel, Joe Brady, whoever it is, and we'll get to the other report later, that you're going to overcome those shortcomings when you've had 3 years to do it?
Yeah, if I'm Ben Johnson, the first thing I'm doing when I sit down is asking, is this really the guy who's going to be giving me my personnel? Because you're coming from a place where you had Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and an elite offensive line and Amon-Ra St. Brown and all these weapons, Sam Laporta, Jared Goff, who he kind of like resurrected, so I have belief that he can come and help Caleb Williams. But if I'm sitting down as Ben Johnson, are you the guy that's really going to pick the players? You're going to select the groceries for me? Because I don't trust you to do it. Darnell Wright, so far, you can write him off if you want because of who he's had to play next to and the inconsistency in the grouping.
I think he's going to be okay, though.
You know what? He's not going to be the best tackle in his draft.
No.
That's an issue when you selected him number 9. And then if you just want to look at last year's draft, and I get that everybody likes Roma Dunze, but the reality is you took DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and then you drafted a wide receiver, and he's not going to be anywhere close to either the best non-quarterback or the best wide receiver taken in the draft.
No.
And it actually might be a guy taken behind him in Brian Thomas Jr.
Well, and also, you watch a lot of college football. Obviously, Chicago's College Tailgate every Saturday at 8 a.m. I watch a lot of college football as well, and there's wide receivers everywhere. There's wide receivers as the draft is long.
As you can tell by watching Ladd McConkey in L.A. or Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville, working with Mac Jones and a dead body offensive line.
I like Roma Dunze. I think he's a fine player, but you could have also drafted another offensive lineman there. You could have done a lot of things there instead and drafted a wide receiver later in the draft.
Or my draft crush, Jared Verse, who looks like he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And I bet Montez Sweat wouldn't look the way he looks right now if there were a serious player on the other side of him.
Well, because the best this defense looked is last year when you had a healthy Anik Ngakoue and Montez Sweat. That's when this defense looked good. And this year, Sweat has been MIA on the stat sheet. He is generating some pressure, but it's obviously better when you have two, and they felt that they were good on the defensive line. They didn't address it in the offseason. They didn't address it in the draft. They felt that they were fine on the defensive line. And obviously it's become a problem and it's going to be on display again, despite how unhealthy Detroit is. You're going to look at this team, and I expect Detroit to put up a pretty big number on this defense again. And I don't know if the Bears can keep up in a shootout. And it's mainly because of the guys Ryan Poles has brought in and the guys, like you said, that aren't on this team. 312-332-3776. What are you looking forward to watching on Sunday with this Bears team? Is it just Caleb Williams? Are you looking for these other members of the team, the guys that Ryan Poles has picked and selected and traded for and signed to kind of improve? Are you out on Ryan Poles, as Shea and I are? 312-332-3776.